If the today you could go up to that day you, what advice would the today you give that day?
It is to really bite into your higher why. So when you have this higher why of what you're pushing for, it pushes out all that fear. For me, faith is very important, so I do it for the greater glory of God. And you just put your energy into that. For me, and what I've learned now, that pushes away the fear, the anxiety, and all the things that you have to struggle with.
You see a lot of younger guys are afraid. They're afraid in business.
Yes.
They're afraid of competition.
Yep.
They're afraid if they don't make the sale. You cannot be afraid like that. And as soon as they shed that, they start playing with their intellect first. You played college football for
Bowling Green State University.
And famously, you won the Raisin Bowl.
California Raisin Bowl 1991.
Kevin is the CEO of Best Version Media. The company got an upgrade when you took over.
Absolutely. No question.
Yeah. And they've been growing like crazy under your leadership, which is fantastic.
We went from 150 million to $1 billion.
I refuse to stay in a victim mentality. I gotta stand and fight for my honor and my family. That's how I did it, cause you know that's how it had to be. So now I'm slaying dragons and I do it happily. I told him I refuse to be another casualty. I looked inside the dragon's eyes and then I told him casually, hi, I'm a dragon slayer and I got a dragon lair. I'ma go and slay a dragon, then I'm gonna drag him there. I don't care, I ain't scared. Look inside my heart and there's a lion there. Conquering my dragons, I ain't fighting fair.
Welcome to Durand On Demand, the Leading Giants podcast. Today we're breaking from tradition, and our Giant today is Kevin O'Brien, but Dave has known him for so long that he is going to do his introduction. So, Dave, take it away.
You know, Nico, Kevin would rather have you do the introduction
I would.
than me. I know that he would, and he's got that good introduction voice, and we always begin with, and today's Giant is, and you are a Giant.
Especially in the gym.
Yeah, and in gym. See, because the audience doesn't know our relationship yet, I refrained from what I was going to say
Taking
about
it all out there.
You being a Giant. So I've known Kevin for a long time, so this is why the introduction is a little bit less formal. We've known each other for almost 20 years now.
Yeah.
A fascinating reality.
Yeah.
And we met when Kevin moved into town into Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which at the time I was living there as well, too. And we just hit it off. Our families became close friends. Kevin was building, you were at Multicolor at the time.
Yeah.
And you helped build that company from what to what?
We went from 150 million to $1 billion.
To $1 billion. And then you were going to be taking over the whole sales organization and vice president of sales. When I was able to kind of swoop you away from that. Kevin also did some fantastic work with an organization, nonprofit called Men of Christ, leading thousands of guys,
tens of thousands
of guys to truly even more of a giant than I thought. Tens of thousands of guys in so many different ways to form and shape men the right way, properly. And it's really great work. But probably starting in 2014, I was trying to woo you over to Best Version Media because I had plans for you to become the CEO, which you didn't even realize those were the plans. You knew that I had plans for you to be elevated to super high spots. I mean, I think I revealed it to you pretty quickly. But the long and the short of it is that Kevin has quite a history. You won we'll go back. It's kind of like Pulp Fiction, where we're doing scene 2 and scene 1, or I don't know how they did that there. But anyway, you played college football for
Bowling Green State University.
And famously, you won the Raisin Bowl.
California Raisin Bowl 1991.
We have to put that out.
This
Nico?
is it. Chris Osake's last play ever in the Big West Conference. He gets sacked. He got rid of it. It won't matter. It's over. Bowling Green has won the football game. Kevin O'Brien. What a job by Kevin O'Brien, the outside linebacker, coming in with the clamps.
But much to your chagrin, though, the lower third had your name spelled wrong, didn't it?
No, the jersey had
The jersey
had EIN instead of IEN. But
what do? Everybody gets a jersey, so they can keep it for the race. And where's it hanging now?
It's hanging just with the front, not the back.
It's just
in the basement in the sports.
What
with all the
they spell your name
that I have.
You have the winning tackle with the jersey that has the wrong name on it. Anyway, he reps this out all the time. Whenever I introduce Kevin to people at work, he always sets him down and shows him the video. He's never done that once.
Did that
but that is my joke.
We talked about it.
But then he did. He went on to you were all world
So I played 3 years, so starting left.
Yeah, but you can't do this.
Yeah.
No, because it ruins it for me.
Right. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I have to hit this. Whenever I introduce Kevin, I always say
You're not gonna go there, right? Really?
he played for the Bills, Buffalo Bills.
Yep.
And he played for the New England Patriots.
Yes.
Which was the best month of his life. See, he would have ruined it. So anyway, walk us back though. So you're in college, and by the way, beginning with the end in mind, where you are today.
Yeah.
Kevin is the CEO of Best Version Media. He's been in that role for about 2.5 years, and I always told people in the company that the company got an upgrade when you took over.
Absolutely, no question.
Yeah. And they've been growing like crazy under your leadership, which is fantastic.
Right. Yeah.
Which that's great because you're always growing.
Yeah. Getting leaner.
and
stronger.
And the business is growing. Okay, so you're in college.
Yes.
You win the Raisin Bowl.
That's 91.
In 91. You're saying, what am I going to do here in my career? So walk us through football and how you landed in this very unfortunate seat today, right here next to
Sure. So 91, that was my junior year. And that was a time, actually, when you have plays in your life, right, that like, wow, this stands out. So at that point, 91 finishes, we win the game, we're picked to lose by 21 points, and you start really thinking, oh my gosh, do I have the ability, skinny kid from Detroit, to have the opportunity. They do. It was. Some people did. Not you.
They believe the Detroit part.
So, and then I just really started training for it. I think like anything in life, once you set your mind for it, you try to go for it. I wasn't sure. I was called a tweener, meaning I was an outside linebacker that rushed, but in the NFL, you got to be able to cover.
Oh, yeah. How heavy were you at the time?
I was 235.
235 in college.
I was a little lean.
Lean. And
especially as a D. Like, it was almost like a D end role.
Right. And at the time, a D end in the pros would have weighed what?
Oh, 260, 270.
And what height?
80. 6'4", 6'5".
And it's still today now?
Oh, yeah. Though it depends on where you're talking. You're talking 275 to 290.
Yeah.
So we were running a different type of defense where they had outside linebackers, Cornelius Bennett, Darryl Talley, Buffalo Bills, right? These are all pro.
Yeah. And you were fast, though.
I was fast, yeah.
Yeah.
4'6",
yeah.
4'5".
Yeah, that is fast. Fast enough to give yourself your own nickname.
Yeah, right.
White Lightning. By the way, he didn't give himself the nickname White Lightning. I've always said that about him because it's funny to say. Because like,
you don't want to go into how we played and you called the game. We don't want to do that.
No, I don't want to, because I'm a guy that could have never played college football, let alone pro for a month.
Like a 5'2".
So all I have is ripping on you for playing in the pros for only a month. But actually, you played in the pros for much longer than that. But as far as the NFL was a shorter time. But
well, it was like anything. When you go in, and interesting enough, as I reflect back, the Buffalo Bills was the best opportunity. So graduated in 92, 93, went to Buffalo. Great experience. Marv Levy was the head coach. It was that 4-year stint where they were actually going to.
Hey, what do a dollar bill and that Marv Levy Bills team have in common?
Oh, say that again?
A dollar bill and the Marv Levy team. What do they have in common?
I don't know.
They both folded nicely halfway.
Hey, they got there.
That was the time they lost 4 in a row, right?
And the interesting thing, because being Bill Parcells was the head coach in New England. But seeing
now, I'm going to get Buffalo hate me.
Oh yeah, all day long.
Yeah,
they should. Because I like Buffalo. Buffalo's good.
Yeah, I like them too. I just remember the joke. You just resurrected a joke. That's all. Okay, go ahead.
So just the experience, being able to go there, and then when you're sitting, so now you enter into the experience of taking your game to a whole new level, and I'm sitting with these Hall of Famers. At that time we're all pros.
Yeah, who's the quarter? That was
Jim Kelly.
Jim Kelly,
Bruce Smith, Andre Reed. It's just a litany of guys that now are in the Hall of Fame. And it was like, wow, I was a big fish in a little pond at Bowling Green. Now you became a very small fish in a big pond.
Yeah. And I hear that the difference between the speed.
Yeah, that's the big thing, because you're looking at the size is relatively the same, but in the athletic ability, right? So the speed, athletic ability, strength does tie into that. Fascinating enough, though, when I ended in, going to Buffalo, the work ethic that you had to put in was a lot less. Like, you didn't do conditioning. A lot of that stuff was tempered. We didn't do a lot of hitting, because the guys were like, hey.
Yeah, but it was wiser, though. Like, I mean,
it is. You wouldn't beat yourself up like you did in college.
No.
That's what Marv really pushed, too.
Yeah. And also, I saw this as a fighter for many years. The guys that would go in and bang, their careers were short.
Yeah.
But I would go in and just kind of tap fight just to make the point. I would have scored if I wanted to, and do that for 3-4 hours, 5 hours, where some guys would go in there and just pound their bodies.
And they'd wear themselves out.
Yeah, and I mean, my body's still kind of worn out from it, but I watch guys do it shorter. So I think that's kind of like that pro
mindset, and you come in, in their expectation, you come in shape, ready to go. So it was just getting, really for me, it wasn't the physicality of it, it was the mentality of it. So if you ever watched the Hard Knocks, right?
Yeah.
You know, the Grim Reaper knocking on the door, that's real.
That's what it feels like.
You feel it. And then every day you're like, okay, he just walked by.
Yeah.
And, but it was a great experience. Got cut, unfortunately, and then went to the CFL and did well there. Then got drafted into, they changed it. It was the World League when I got drafted. They changed the name to NFL Europe. So the NFL, like soccer has come here.
Yes.
They are trying to export American football. Yeah. And that was a phenomenal experience.
Were there a lot of people that went to the games?
You wouldn't have like 30, 40,000.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't 75.
It wasn't 75, but it was still,
it was pretty good, especially when you get like, you know, Germans really loved American football.
Yeah.
The Spaniards were more fascinated with the big offensive linemen, right? You see these giants come walking by, and they would leave
like this is not Mediterranean diet.
What is going on, right? Different world, and a great experience. Did well there. Got then picked up by the New England Patriots. Bill Parcells was there. Had a really powerful experience there as well. Got hurt, unfortunately, tore my hamstring, and you know, if you can play as a free agent,
yeah. So, but you spent how many years playing pro football in one way or another out of
3 years?
3 years total.
So in Parcells, this was a good comment that he said. He actually really cemented it. He said, listen, you got 3 years. If you don't make it after 3 years, get out, use the degree you better have, and go get a real job. And I really took that to heart. It was like, okay, I did it, I tried it, and now I'm going to go right the next job.
You waited until 2015 to get the real job, but that's all right.
Right.
So, okay, so then you go from there, and at this point, you are married, not married?
Not married.
Married.
Dating my now wife.
Dating Leslie.
Yeah. Wonderful wife.
Yeah, she's beautiful.
She is.
And then thank God she was an athlete, too, because your kids are incredible athletes. Your son broke all the records, Ave Maria.
For playing football. Tackle, yeah. I mean, like tackles.
Yeah, like 19 in a game or some crazy thing like that. That was outstanding. And so he got Leslie's speed also. Because she was a collegiate track athlete, right?
She was a Hall of Famer, too.
And then, of course, Jaden is the number one now?
So she was, she won the pentathlon, the national title. So she's at Notre Dame. So the first person.
So by the way, for people listening, the pentathlon, the pentathlete is always, if somebody says who's the greatest female athlete in the world, Jackie Joyner Kersee was, because she was a pentathlete.
Pentathlete 5 or heptathlete. She was indoor, outdoor.
Oh, heptathlete. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, the female version to the Bruce Jenner, which let's hope it doesn't go in that direction. But that whole thing, that's a pretty impressive thing. So
it is.
If you are an athlete and you really want to be, well, she's not doing it to be known as an athlete. She's doing it because that's what she's good at.
Yes.
But this is how you can actually show the world you're like the best out there. And so she won nationals.
She won a national title, and it was the first time in Notre Dame history a male or female had won that title. So, yeah, I was very excited.
So she, as a freshman, too, she set all the Notre Dame records.
As a freshman, she did, yeah.
Yeah, so she's an Olympic hopeful.
She is, and she's going out. Yeah, she'll be trying out this year.
That's an awesome thing.
Yeah.
And then you just keep going. And Caitlin is...
Down at Ave, she's doing great.
She also went to nationals.
She did.
In her freshman year.
Yeah.
In track.
Yeah.
Amazing. And now you just had somebody sign it.
So PJ, so we have 7. So 4.
I mean, this is an interview. I mean, but still, it's awesome.
Well, yeah, we're just blessed. The kids are really.
But he's going to Hillsdale.
And he's going to Hillsdale playing.
Hillsdale.
Football.
I mean, yeah. That's awesome.
Football. Yeah.
So that's pretty impressive. It's good that you married up.
I absolutely married up.
Athleticism there. Okay, so you, and actually this is kind of a part of your story, because anybody that knows you knows that you give the same amount of commitment to your family, to raising your kids, to being a husband, to helping that non-for-profit we talked about earlier, the Men of Christ organization, to the way you build business and the way you think about business. And it's the same thing that you applied to what you were doing as an athlete. But here's a question I like to ask people. If you would have known then, if the you try the NFL, all that, yes, that had to be done. But now you're out. You know, you've been sent your walking papers by the New England Patriots.
Yep.
If the today you could go up to that day you, what advice would the today you give that day?
For football, I
not enough for football, just for life. Over the next couple of decades, if you were to just know and do this, you would accelerate your career, your goodness, your family, what would that be?
I think the best advice that I would give, and actually I'm going to be talking to a group of college students
There's a guest CEO speaker as in the CEO course.
It is to really bite into your higher why. Like for me, when
First speaker, by the way, Nico nailed it. It's going to be hard for him to beat.
And but it would have the higher why, really like understanding why you do what you do.
Is this like the Simon Sinek?
Yeah, a little bit like when you lose your why, you lose your way. But for me, like even when I go back to the Buffalo Bills, I didn't have this ultimate passion, and I played scared, right? Like, oh my gosh, what if I make, what if I make a mistake? So what happens? It puts this burden on you. So when you have this higher why of what you're pushing for, it pushes out all that fear because you're like, listen, why am I doing it? For me, faith is very important, so I do it for the greater glory of God, and you just put your energy into that. Yeah. For me, and what I've learned now, that pushes away the fear, the anxiety, and all the things that you have to struggle with. And I think a lot of leaders can do that, and then it ties into not making good decisions because they're really operating on a modality of fear.
So I love the correlation here between athletics and also business and everything else in life. So I am just thinking of this as you're talking. I remember in high school, I'm talking to the guy at the paper. I'm riffing on the guy who only played for the Patriots, and I have to go back to, well, I remember in high school when I played football. No, I remember, though, there were certain guys, and then you saw this in college and the pros, too. They had an unbelievable, sixth sense. They had a nose for the ball. They were just, there. And when you think about it, I remember they would just played they played without fear. They almost played recklessly, but it was actually, interestingly, not as emotional as you would think. I didn't have that experience until I was a fighter. And I remember when I fought, I just fought like a machine. I was very emotional at all. I just was like,
you just do it.
I was like, I'm not going to be afraid. I'm going to, and when I first started, I was afraid. I mean, you first start, you have super high anxiety and you're like, I don't know what this guy knows. He's got 9 weapons coming at me. What am I going to do? But then you settle in, and we gave this example in one of the earlier shows, like George Foreman, when he was 50 years old and he became the undisputed heavyweight champion. The dude was totally out of shape. He had a piece of KFC in his mouth, and this guy half his age is coming at him. He'd just be like, boom, He was calm. He was cool. He was collected. And it seems kind of that's what you're describing is play unafraid.
Yeah, play with purpose.
But play with passion. No fear, but passion.
So it's interesting. One of the things, going back to this idea of higher why, playing with purpose, one of the things that, in our family, we talk about go full go. So that's kind of what you're saying. This idea of, okay, everything I'm going to do, I'm going to go full go when I do it. Yeah. And what that does is it's exhilarating. It's exciting. And it does allow you to play at your full potential. Because you're not, like you said, you're not worried about making a mistake. You just do it. And it almost becomes, you get into this flow, right?
It's an unconscious thing.
It is. And then it feels like after you could play, you'd be running harder, hitting harder, and you feel great.
So I want to stay on this for a moment because this is a tectonic shift type moment for some people that are listening, because there is this relationship between our intellect and our emotions that really just matters. And how do you play passionately but always lead with your intellect so your emotions follow? That matters, because as soon as you see some guy get unscrewed, they get devoured. And there is that thing that kind of settles in where machine-like you just go after the outcome that you need to go after, which is why you see a lot of younger guys are afraid. They're afraid in business.
Yes,
they're afraid of competition. Yep. They're afraid if they don't make the sale. Or in athletics, we've seen this because I've both kind of worked with older athletes, and I've even trained a couple of pro guys. Hey, you cannot be afraid like that. And as soon as they shed that, they start playing with their intellect first. But this is why I think I'm having a hard time articulating this, is that your intellect is leading and your passion is following. But I wouldn't even call that emotion, even though it kind of is. Yeah. It's like that purpose.
Yeah.
It's like,
for me, that's what felt, when I think back, you asked the question, what advice would you give? That's it. It's like, if I have the reason why I'm doing it and I elevate it out just beyond a game, into something higher than myself. That fills my conviction cup. And then in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm going to give this everything I have. And I focus on that because you go as your thoughts go.
Yeah.
It's amazing what you can do, whether that be in sport, whether that be in study from an academic perspective, or whether that be in business. And it's how you're able to push through and actually do the right things when it's required.
Yeah. So have there been times where even now as a mature leader who you've accomplished a lot of different things, where you can kind of even see that college or pro self just creep in for a moment and you push it aside?
All the time. I mean, I think it would be not real for us. It's like, let me back up to answer that question. It would be not real for that not to be real. Like, oh my gosh, you never have fear. Like, really?
Right.
Okay, well, then you're not human.
Yeah.
You know, we run a business right now. Of course, there's, economic situations you get nervous about. Sometimes at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'll wake up and start worrying about it. That's just, I think, a natural
Remember
part.
Jose Delgado?
Oh, yeah.
He starts an American Transmission Company, right? One of the biggest, billions of dollars. Just an incredible leader and the kind of guy you'd think was bulletproof. And I know he meant a lot to both of us. He sadly passed away a few years ago. But I remember he used to say, how did he say it? Do you remember? He said, I'm like a soldier, I'm filled with courage during the day. And I'm filled with courage when I have my pants on. I am fearful with my pajamas on.
Oh. That's past,
And that was what he was kind of saying, like when the night would set.
And things would start to settle down.
And he would start to think about the day as when he was in the game, he was fine and bulletproof. But at night, that's when the fears crept in. And I thought that it was, like I was unstoppable with my pants on and fearful with my pajamas on.
Well, one of the things he would always say, too, as a leader, the higher you go, the bigger your umbrella.
Yeah.
I always thought that was a powerful comment to really think of. Again, as a leader, you have this opportunity, in a sense, to protect people from the storms of life. Yeah. The other thing in regards to the fear is I've come to learn to run towards the fear. The Navy SEALs have this great line when you talk about, we in business talk about getting your head right all the time, full benefit. Right, full benefit. And what does that mean? No, it doesn't matter what they're going into, what they say before entering into that experience. How do I get the full benefit? So they say full benefit, but the meaning behind it is, how do I get the full benefit from this experience, no matter what the experience is? And when you start to change that thought process, it's amazing. You're like, okay, actually in the struggle is where my strength lies. So if I'm willing to enter into that, to have the courage that I need to have, because again, what does courage mean? I'm afraid and I do it anyways. So I have that natural fear. I'm pushing it out because I have a higher why. I keep going forward. Guess what happens? You build that strength.
Yeah.
And then you have the respect and you have the self-confidence, that internal strength that you're like, you trust your decision making, which reduces the anxiety that you have, and you're able to move forward and build greatness.
Yeah. So when I see you lead, I quite often see you make decisive decisions, which is good. But I also see you on occasion going, calm down, like, like literally, let's calm the circumstance here. Let's channel this and let's just move forward here. And it is true in business, people can kind of get a little restless. And then their emotions start to run away and they start to fantasize things that aren't going to happen. And it's the classic thing that a coward dies 1,000 deaths, right?
Yep.
And you have to rein them back in. What would you say would be kind of one of the keys that you use to calming, when you have that umbrella?
Yeah.
To calming people and getting them to settle in.
Well, I think for us, when I look at it, from a business perspective, is just taking that breath before moving forward to execute. It depends on the decision you need to make, right? Yeah. A higher level decision, you should be prudent with it, right? Yeah. Really, let me evaluate. And then these lower level decisions, let's go. Because one of the beauties...
Speed of the decision equal to the weight of the issue.
Yes, exactly. So this idea, I don't know if it was Jim Collins who had talked about this. He said, this idea, great companies have a bias for action, right? And this idea of doing it, fixing it, and then trying it again, and having a culture of experimentation. So for us, again, depending on the weight of that decision, will really dictate speed, right? If it impacts more people, let's just make sure we're going through and doing the proper analysis. And the other thing that we do is we do things in chunks. So like if it's a big...
You do things in what?
In chunks. So like we'll do a little, for us in our business, hey, you know what? Let's not do this and roll this particular thing out to the entire company. Let's just pick a division or region. Let's verify what we believe is going to happen. And that has been extremely effective for us.
Yeah. When people believe that every single move you need to make in business has to be a success, and that there is no experimentation process, they don't really get the way the laboratory the laboratory works. And you have to be able to kind of go in there in your white coat and make some mistakes and make adjustments.
Yeah. But with that, Dave, I think it's so important because I think people you've heard this old saying about this, let me analyze and be paralyzed because I've got to keep analyzing and analyzing before making a decision.
Yeah.
And I think great companies, there is some of the analysis stuff, but there is like, let's just do it. Let's just make sure, let's try it out. Because in business, you do have the opportunity, depending on the weight of the decision, to make the correction. And I think one of the great things that we have within BVM is this desire to get better. So we go for it, we make a decision, we move forward, we're all on board, and then we tweak as we go to make it better. And you see it in the results.
Yeah. So would you say there's ever been a time where you would say just like, man, it just hit the fan? Like you were... whether it's multicolor or it was just in your football career or it was in BVM, and you're like, you know what? This just got FUBAR, and we have to fix something. What was that like, and how did you fix it?
For me, actually, it was an experience that I was fortunate to have with you. So taking over, left the business that I was in at Multicolor, right? Yeah. Had the VP, turned that VP down. You and I connected, brought me in, and really had to do a lot of cleaning, right? Just the entire process, and it was a different sales.
So, by the way, to fill in the blanks for people here, I gave you the very unfortunate circumstance of taking over a region who was led by a person who had some character issues. And those character issues were a little bit hard to see at first because it was pretty
it's a dynamic.
Yep. And so they started to show up. And when they showed up, I was like, I'm not fixing this. I got to have Kevin do it. So I bring you in, and we had 5 regions at the time?
Yes, we did.
And so I asked you to take over this particular region, the southern region, and to see what you can do with it, because it was just topsy-turvy like you wouldn't believe. And that required a lot of change. A lot of change,
which then, so you talk about something extremely uncomfortable, right? I thought there was mutiny going to take place, right? It was one of these things where you know what you need to do, going back to the whole idea of having courage and not being afraid.
By the way, this is a good lesson, because he was not good for the business, but he was liked by certain people because of his charisma.
Yes.
And because he would always cover for their weakness by basically feeding them more weakness and sheltering them from the at-large culture of the organization, which demanded more. And so weak people loved him.
They were attracted to him.
Strong people were not attracted to him. They were pretty repelled.
And there was again, from you in the way we would talk about leading and building a great culture, there was some of that was just, we're saying one thing, doing something different. So you're coming in to make a lot of change, and people are used to a certain way of leadership. And I remember going through that experience, and it was very, very difficult, right? So again, just something completely different, not understanding the industry like I did before, stepping outside my comfort zone, and then of course making all of these changes to move us from, one of the last regions to the number one for 8 straight years. Yeah. And in that process, I was like, you know what? The stress, right, was so heavy. And I'm like, I can't do this. And one of the things this is a great comment, I think, for people listening.
You're in the role now for just a couple of months.
Well, it's probably 4 or 5 months, right?
Yeah.
So to your point, just getting through it. And you're like, hey, Kev, you're going to have some waves you're going to have to get through. So you front-loaded that. But when you get in it, when you're in the fight, it doesn't feel good.
No.
So making all the change, doing the right things, but from a principal perspective, you are doing the right things. And so I remember going out and having lunch, and we had a coffee, and I'm like, Dave, you know what? Hey, I appreciate the opportunity. It's great, but I don't think I'm your guy, right? Because it was coming in from so many different directions, and it was, in a sense, it was overwhelming. And you gave some amazing advice. You said, Kev, he goes, you know what happens when you bake a cake and you turn that cake, you turn the oven, it says 20 minutes for 400. What happens if you turn it up to 700 degrees? I said, oh, you burn the cake. Yeah. Let the cake bake. And in that process of just allowing things to take place, staying true to who you were, bringing what we would call in our business orthodoxy, the right principles of good business.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how in a relatively, 6 to 7 months, you started to see the change. It took a little while to get going.
I already saw it. At the time that you didn't see it, I already was seeing it. Yeah.
You absolutely were seeing it. And I think that would be something, when I look back, is a great learning to be able to push through, specifically in the beginning, to be able to get to where you want to go.
Yeah, it was impressive to see it. And I think also your kind of like a sense of loyalty and duty was one of the reasons that you were it was weighing on you a little bit more, which I also have kind of used against you. I was like, dude, trust me.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you know what? You did. So that's right. So you had said with that, you gave a good analogy, but then you said, Kev, I'm, like we're such close friends and stuff.
Yeah.
Why don't you trust me? That was a line.
That's a guilt thing. Huh?
Oh man,
wow.
you guilt. But
I like let it with guilt. Yeah. When all else fails, we got to put that in Leading Giants. Guilt your friends into commitment.
And it worked, and it was enough just to for me to trust in the guidance you were giving. Because I think sometimes, like, oh wait, I don't feel it. Going back to your comments earlier on emotion, and then just holding strong through the storm, and then seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, you did fantastic. And like you said, once that region went from the worst to first, it just stayed there.
Yeah. Because
you just basically permanently put things in there. I remember there's also a particular person who you and I are fond of in the organization. They're still today, I think 12 years running. And she, under the old leadership, looked bad.
Oh, yeah.
It had nothing to do with her. But the other leader made her look so bad in so many different ways that I remember not knowing her very well, but thinking, I don't know if she's going to be able to stay. I don't know if she's going to make it. And then under the right leadership, you come in and she is like rock star of rock stars and just lovable and kind and good and loyal and everything else. And that's like a really good lesson, I think, for people to learn, that if you've got that bad leader in place, the good people can look bad underneath them, and other people can maybe look better than they actually are because of what they value and how they go.
Well, and I think too, pouring into them, right? So that was a big thing with that individual. And by the way, she's been in the top 2 for the last 8 to 9 years. So just to your point, just incredible on how somebody that talented could be overshadowed, and in a negative way because of the weakness of the leader, right? Probably, or he was giving bad coaching guidance.
The two things: bad coaching, bad guidance, and also he represented her poorly in meetings when he spoke of her. It was
and almost in a sense him taking credit for
what it was he was doing things poorly, she was doing things well. When he would come to give a report, he blamed the things that didn't go well on her and took credit for the things that did go well himself. And there was enough dubious behavior for me to not know if that was true or not.
Yeah.
And so
especially when you run a business and you're trying to grow, listen, I've got a leader, I expect him to give the honest.
Yeah. So, okay, a couple other things. Have you ever had like enemies at the gate? And this would be a competition. Another organization that you're trying to lead and they're kind of getting in your way, or do you just not pay attention in any one of your careers? Like you're dealing with. So, Nico, we were having a good time yesterday. So when we first met, Kevin was in sale. He had a sale job.
Yeah, I didn't even think you were going to bring that one up. Oh my gosh.
No. So so he worked for this massive company that sold labels. Yeah. And his client was Miller.
I had more than one client. It was the biggest client.
That was the biggest client. But I used to say, you're not in sales. You're in sale. You have this one client. So what's it like to be in sales? Yeah. No, it was more than that. But anyway, so if we go back to those days or current days or anything, how do you look at the threats, not within the organization, because those we're going to get to, but the threats that are outside of the organization, whether it's competition, whether it's the economy, whether it's whatever it is, an enemy that's kind of at the gate, and you have to fight this off.
So I think, to me, let's not be ignorant to it, right? So knowing and understanding your competition, you're playing football, like I'll use that as an example. We studied them in great depth. From a business perspective, I think one of the things when I entered into BVM, we did have a big competitor that was something that you would hear very frequently, the name of it, and it scared people. And I think what we did is we just, listen, let's be the best version of ourselves. Let's actually build the best business that we can. So we stayed hyper-focused on what we did well, and it's amazing how you don't even hear that anymore.
You don't hear their name anymore?
It doesn't.
And
So
what were you, like 3 times bigger?
And so I think it depends on the situation. Again, if you need to really stay hyper-focused and know what the competition is doing, that's one component of, for us in the business that we're in, we stay on building greatness, right? Literally building the people and building our products and what we're offering to our clients. And through that, it's not even an issue. And then to your point, I think we're double, almost triple to the size they are now because of what we were being able to do. And they started before us.
Yeah.
So my advice would be it depends in regards to the situation that you're at. But from a business perspective right now, we're looking at that as how do we get better? Because we've got a great product, we've got great people, and as what Peter Drucker said, culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? Yeah. And this idea of building a great culture, and within that, it's amazing how, like, whether it be new products or new ideas, it flourishes and it comes up, and we're able to continue to move and also change with the times.
So I think it's an interesting thing to be aware of competition and just not fear it. You can take this from the macro level of leading a company and building it hundreds of millions, $1 billion, whatever you want to build it to, or you can take it right down to an individual sales rep. Individual sales rep is afraid of competition in their area, the corporation at large. What I have found is if that particular person in that area got up every day and did their job without fear, they're going to crush their competition
all day long.
Yeah, because especially in sales is a good example of it, because most people don't do well in sales because they don't do the work. They don't make the calls. They don't do the prospecting. They're not out there meeting with people. I mean,
and you're not even talking something like some dramatic, like, oh my gosh, I've got to, lift this 250-pound weight. You're just talking about doing the same
simple reps.
Simple reps every day consistently.
Yeah, and let them worry about you.
Yeah.
If you do that every single day, they're going to be freaked out about you. And the other thing, too, is this law of scarcity, too, for the most part, because as opposed to abundance, because there's so much out there, generally speaking. Now, there are some businesses, like when you were in sale, there's only so much, so many.
With one client,
There's only so many company you can go to make the sale. But for most people, they're out there, and there's way more options, SMBs in particular. And they're sitting there thinking, oh, well, this company is twice the size of me, like the solopreneur. And by the way, I want to rid the world of solopreneurs, because it's like prison. It's like, oh, I have a job, I want freedom, so I'm going to go work for myself. And now they do it all by themselves, and they find that it's a greater prison than others. A great start, by the way, but Nico and I are going to rid the world of solopreneurs, one solopreneur at a time, turn them into entrepreneurs. That's like, boom, that massive difference between solo and entre. And the biggest thing in the way is their pride. They put themselves in a prison, they lock the door, and then they complain about how they have no life anymore. So I want to give them the key and walk them out of that cage. But what happens is they have a tendency to say, well, if I could just make $300,000 a year, my life would change. Only to realize that once they hit 300, they're like, it should be $1 million, and they're more and more. And there's a negative side to that dissatisfaction, but there's also a positive side. When you're building a business, you want to grow, and it's not necessarily about the money. It's about getting better and building, right? Yeah. But anyway.
And keeping the momentum.
Yeah, so they're like, all right, I'm making $100,000. If I could make $300,000, life would be so good. Now they're on pace to make $300,000 or making $300,000, but because they see that the competition is at $2 million, they now get afraid, as opposed to going, wait a second, I actually set out to accomplish something, and I accomplished it, and now I'm freaked out about something else. They should have just set out for the $2 million and they'd get there. How do you lead? Because you've been very good at this, helping people see opportunity bigger than it is. What are the ways you do that?
I think one of the things that we do is also set realistic goals. So it depends on some people, and we've talked about this. When they look at it, they've only made $50,000 a year. If they go, oh my gosh, I want to do 200, it's so big,
In their
they
mind.
stop believing it.
There's studies, I think, that show that people can only see themselves doubling their income.
That's right. I've heard that many, many times. So again, having this idea of, okay, where do you want to go? For me, I always start with the highest why. Like, what's your why? So why are you doing for my family, for whatever? So that will give me the conviction, the belief that I need to push through the uncomfortableness that's going to come, overcoming the no. So having that why, having the goal, and then just, this is the other big thing. And I think one of the things that makes us so great within BVM is this idea of having the personal coaching, right? This accountability that drives people. So one of the things that I do from a leadership perspective is not only help people achieve the goal or set goals, help them how they're going to get it, have the third component, which is providing the accountability to make sure they continue to do that. It's amazing how a little nudge, a little call, or even these accountability sessions, like for us, I have literally every week one-on-one sessions with all of our key people. And I think a lot of businesses don't do that. I lay it out. Here's what we're going to talk about. They come prepared and we have great sessions. And in that process, it's amazing how the learning takes place, but also how their conviction is starting to be firmed up in the belief on what's possible.
You're getting their head right.
They're getting their head right.
We call it TTP in the AM. Talk to people in the morning.
Yeah.
You get their head. I mean, if you think about that, how many direct reports do you have?
Oh, 12.
Oh, I only had 3.
Yeah, you're wise. Actually, I just cut that.
Once I
it's
said
going to be 8.
Is it?
Right?
All right,
Yeah.
good. No,
It should be
I
in
had
the
somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah.
But so at 12, if you get every one of those people's heads right in the right direction, and of course you have such great people in those roles that they're working hard to get their own head right. But if you're ensuring that and they're pointed in the right direction, you in essence could go home. I mean, that's a theoretical thing, but in essence you can, because you've got everybody moving in the right direction to get it done. Now, I know that what you do is you basically say, well, if I'm going to continue to lead and I'm giving them everything I have to get more. So even though their heads are right, you're working on yourself and working on ideas too. But
I think to that point, though, is if you're a leader like CEO, VP, or whatever, director, pouring into your people. And then there's a comfort knowing that you have impact the entire business. Like there's a piece. So going back to the whole fear, like, hey, I'm talking to the key people to drive the business, basically depending on the situation daily, but have a consistent meeting time with them every week. And then you know that you're impacting the business. And it's amazing for me how much peace I have. Like, doesn't matter what's
and of course, I did it a little differently. I had, and you know this.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, because
well, it's different styles, right?
It's different styles.
Yeah.
But I think it's, your style is so good. Mine was a little bit more like, let's touch base every week.
Yeah.
So we touched base.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But it was less formal.
Less formal.
And we didn't have the formal meeting, but you knew that conversation was going to be, hey, let's go to back office and look at some numbers here.
Yeah.
And we kind of spontaneously worked in it. So the thing I think that's the common denominator there is making sure that contact is there. Specifically
with those people that are impacting your business, right?
Yes.
I think sometimes like these quarterly or semi-annually reviews, like what?
Yeah.
How are you not, meeting on a consistent basis or just bringing people in groups?
Yeah.
One of the things that we do in the business is not only do we have our national call, so we're impacting everybody, but we have smaller group sessions and then one-on-ones. And where you see the most movement is when you have that one-on-one discussion.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
I know this is not what you're talking about because you're such you're talking about chief talking to chiefs and presidents.
Yeah.
But the annual review is one of the funniest things I've ever thought of.
Think about just the delay. Like I'm going to wait.
The idea that you're going to show up to a review to find out how you're doing.
Yeah.
Like an annual review, you and I, this would have been our annual reviews. So, all right.
Yeah, good.
What was there that we needed to know about each other in an annual review?
Yeah.
Nothing, because you're talking every day. So, okay, another question I have for you. As you're, building organizations, you're leading people, there's a lot of people that talk about, this, culture eats strategy for breakfast. But really, what does that kind of mean? I always say that when you're around people who are super successful, they talk about different things than the guys who are watching Shark Tank at 1:30 in the morning, eating a bag of chips, saying that was my idea.
Yeah.
They're talking about an invention, new technology. But successful people are talking about that Peter Drucker idea of culture. So when you say we have to solve a problem, and I'll give a more practical example without giving away proprietary information. There are some metrics you even shared with me this morning. You said these metrics need to change. First thing, bold. It's like you did sit there going, yay, we had our best week. Again, you did, leading the company. You know, coming off the best year, coming off the best month. You instead were like, yeah, that's good. But then you looked at areas of dissatisfaction and said, this has to change.
So when we talk, so you're talking about the specific situation is going in, and not only we have the product, but it was training. The solution was actually training. So we have a product that we've created to help people retain clients.
Yes.
And the people that are using the product have probably a 50%, 40 to 50% increase
in effectiveness.
So you're like, well, holy cow. So when we were tracking that, so again, knowing your numbers is so important, right? You can't manage what you can't measure. Is we found out that there wasn't a dramatic increase when we launched this. There wasn't a dramatic increase in the number of people using it. So what did that tell me? Like, okay, those using it are seeing tremendous results. Everybody wants those. Why is that not happening? His training.
Yeah.
And it goes back to this thought that we were just talking about, this idea of we're gonna talk about it nationally. We're gonna break it down to local group, and then most importantly,
subsidiary.
Yes, the principal subsidiary. So that breaks it down, because there may be something unique in that particular region or division or market
That's blocking it.
So
this is the thing that's so interesting. So here you have techniques, strategies, like, and there's technology involved in those strategies.
Absolutely.
So you say, okay, we're going to increase technology. Okay, we're going to increase efficiencies that way. We're going to be innovative. We're going to actually invent something. You added new products in order to make this happen. You did a lot of different things to build this retention. It works, and yet it's not actually fully implemented. Now, what some people say is, why would you even admit that here on the show? Because it's just life.
And that's part of the business.
It is.
Yeah. Don't be afraid. Like, hey, where the gaps are, like to us, if you have the mindset, we're always striving to get better. Yeah. So that doesn't mean you're perfect. We haven't arrived yet.
And most people are going to say, they're going to go, well, that didn't work. No. Yeah. That actually, because you do see data, okay, we're data hounds, because we do see data, you could see where it was working, and you can say, what's happening is we're not working it.
Yeah.
And then your solution isn't just like buy a coffee cup and say, go do it. It's to build through your team, to build through their team, to build through relentlessly.
I think, and again, the word relentlessly, the consistently, one of the things, if again, you look back and say, okay, what haven't we done well? We have a great product that's adding value to clients. Those using it, they have dramatic increases. While we have not executed it well on a consistent enough basis. So what are we going to do? We're doing that. And you're going to see some massive, you're talking millions of dollars.
This is why Kevin won, like, what did you just win recently? Like some CEO, global CEO award winner guy. So
sounded cool.
It's a great
the Global Award.
Actually, there were a lot of awards you were receiving this last year. I couldn't keep up with them. I was like, you were like,
great people.
9-time Emmy award winner. Did you win an Emmy? I don't know if can you do that as a CEO? Anyway, by the way,
let's go back to let's hit the culture thing. I think you were hitting it a little bit. I think when you have because I came from a toxic culture, so there would be fear. You keep hearing that word come up in the to bring that up. Oh gosh, if I bring that up, we made this. So we're now not going to address a key thing that could make us better because you're afraid, because you don't have a great culture that's open. Like, listen, hey, here's a gap that we've identified. Let's go fix it. That is the culture that we've created. And going back to Drucker's comment on culture eating strategy for breakfast, this idea of, wow, because you have such a great culture, you will execute and even make the strategy, even if you have a mediocre strategy, better. Because you're constantly striving to grow, and you have that type of focus and desire to do great. Like this idea of being great and it being the best version of yourself.
Fearlessly being great. So there's two things that you do very well. One is you make people feel very good about themselves in a role, so they don't want to leave, feel appreciated. But you do not do it in a wimpy way. I think that most people, if they were to see, so that
I don't want you bringing up a great point. Keep going.
You're clearly energetic and fun, and you've got that whole big teddy bear thing about you, right? So right. No, it's not really like that so much. It's more like the teddy bear. It is. You've got that whole big Michelin. All right, stop. Some people are going to think we don't even like each other.
I know. When they listen to you, definitely.
When they listen, you bring out the jabs like no one's business. Okay, so all right, so but the whole is you make people feel great, and I think that if people are around you, even in kind of a social setting, they would say, "This guy is fun, makes me feel good, he's fun to be around," but you are steely in your business. You're like, "Listen, that's not going to happen here." And, whether it be a DEI craziness or even simple things like on other things. Like I remember one of the first times I saw it, we have, for the viewers, we call it in the business, and I advise you to do this, orthodoxy. What is orthodoxy? It's basically, if you're going to shoot a basketball, you're going to have your elbow in, you're going to hand the cookie jar, you're going to do that. You remember Jamal Wilkes, was that his name?
Yeah.
He used to do some crazy shot like that. Yeah. Totally unorthodox. And you would never coach somebody to do that, although even though he did it, you wouldn't change it because he was actually effective with it. But orthodoxy is doing things according to principles that can be repeated and work. It's like almost a science formula.
Principle of success for our business. Yep.
And so if you sign a big contract in an unorthodox way, you are likely to lose that contract or not renew that contract.
Or have it canceled.
Or have it cancel some thing about it. So what happens is you have this, it was over discounted. It wasn't really like it could have gone through, but when you hyper discount something, that's bad for a lot of people. So there was a very big contract, but it was just outside of the range of over discounted. And you walked in and you told me about the contract.
You got a little nervous.
This is your early days of making change. And you said, I saw that and I was like, no way. And I was like,
okay.
Okay.
Are you sure?
Cool. Way to be strong. And I was like, how did that go when you highly disappointed these people who were receiving a massive commission on this, and you said, no, you can't do it? Because I thought about the cultural rift.
Yeah.
I thought about the economics for them and for that division. And within 2 days, they re-signed the agreement.
So let me dive into that. So, and I think this was where I wrote down a note, courage. So that in particular individual was a high talent, so it wasn't the first time, right? So you wouldn't want to come in, and just pound right away. No. And not or stand the ground like we don't have policy for policy's sake, right? There's exceptions that you need to make, and on that one it was like the fourth time. Yeah. So it was like, okay, now it becomes a leadership. They're not respecting the proper authority that I have.
Yes.
And to lead them and to actually make sure that we're driving the principles of success, orthodoxy, in the right way. So at that point, I was like, okay, I now need to step in and do something for their greater good. It's going to cause short-term pain for long-term gain. And we did it, and they went back. And they were, again, a lot of pushback in the beginning. They went back and re-signed it with
some of the most loyal, greatest.
And now they're still in the business now for 11 years.
Because
12 years.
Strength attracts.
It does,
and it provides safety. And when somebody's doing something that cutting corners with, and somebody just allows for it, it's
I think this. So I think Lencioni talks about this as well, where he sees executives, and I would say leaders in general, they're one of the biggest weaknesses is the fear to have direct conversation on something that's difficult.
Yeah.
And one of the things I learned, I guess I won't even say young, I had to learn through it. So, but being able to address the issues, and what was my intent? My intent is to help, not to hurt.
Yeah.
So I know this is going to be an uncomfortable conversation, but I know it's the right thing and it needs to be done. I literally just had one of those last week where at the high-level executive there was some disagreement on some things. And interesting enough, the individual, I had a direct conversation, but not like a yelling and screaming thing, but just being real. And he said, Kevin, thank you. I appreciate you. And again, because there's trust, as a leader, you need to have trust. Mm-hmm. And there's an honesty. And he knew what he was doing was wrong. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes leaders will acquiesce that. And then you start to whittle away at your leadership authority and the guidance and the trust that they have for you. So that's something I would definitely throw out to those that are listening, to have that courage and to really think about the intention of why you're doing it. If you're doing it to beat them down or embarrass them, well, then don't do it. But if you're doing it to help them and help the business, well, then absolutely do it.
Yeah, that's great. So when you're looking for somebody, what are the top qualities you're looking for if you want to elevate somebody to a leadership position?
So one of the things that we talk a lot about in our business, which I love, and it's very motivating, is this idea of human excellence or virtue. And the one virtue that I really, from a leadership perspective, or just in general, is somebody that has this magnanimity, this desire for greatness. We'll use language like builder. So that's one characteristic that I look for. I think the other thing when I'm talking about leaders is humility. You know, again, another principle that we talk a lot about in our business, to have that willingness to take feedback and to give it. You know, there's a humble thing to be able to be honest and give that feedback as you're talking to an individual. So
people that forget that humility has two sides to it.
There's strength in it. Go ahead.
It's not just the example I give is Michael Jordan. You don't go up to Michael Jordan in the championship in his prime and say you need to take the winning shot. There's 2 seconds left, and it's not humility for George to say,
no, I'm not going to do it.
No, let's have Rodman shoot.
Yeah.
Okay, he's got to do that. It's humility to say, I have a certain strength, I'm going to act upon it. But at the same time, when he was playing baseball, if they're like, you need a bat cleanup, it would have been a humble act for him to say, well, why don't we have somebody else do that?
Yeah.
So it's like same person, different setting.
And different responsibilities.
Responsibilities.
Right. And being humble with that. And I think do they fit in the culture that we're creating? I think another thing is somebody, I mentioned courage. I think that's a big thing. I think being able to do that, in that, again, being magnanimous in mindset, humble in character, and this idea of having the courage to push forward. So again, whether it be in sales or whether it be in leadership, to have those qualities, and then self-mastery, the ability to temper so that they can make good decisions. And again, to temper, I feel like taking today off. No, I'm going to get up, hit them when the alarm goes off, go do what I got to do that heroic minute, and continue to press forward. I'm going to call my people. We had talked about this idea of this one-on-one. When you're pouring yourself out, I mean, sometimes at the end of the day, I'm like drooling on myself.
Yeah.
Because, as a leader, like there is a mental energy that you transfer. So do you have the self-mastery to be able to consistently do that?
Yeah.
That's something else I look for.
Well, you have to rep it out. I mean, decision-making is exhausting.
It is.
I mean, I would come home sometimes when I was the CEO, and literally somebody'd say, what do you want to eat? And I was like,
I don't. That's what call it. What do you want? I'm like, honey, make that decision.
My brain
I can't even think
at this point right now. It is true, and you have to build that muscle too. It's like anything else. You can get quick decisions, and I remember when I'm around younger executives that are kind of learning and going through that mentoring and some of those meetings, they're quite often shocked by the speed of the decision or the boldness of a decision that takes place. But it's just you rep it out. You have experience with it, and you're able to do that. And that's why it's funny when a lot of young people get anxious about whether or not they have what it takes. You do. I mean, if I was sitting around with myself at that age, I can't even imagine if I would be like, you are so unprofound.
Yeah.
Talking to myself at that age.
And where you thought you were like,
you think you have it together, brother. You just let yourself bake, like you were saying, for a little bit longer, but keep trying. The earnest effort is there. But the reason that you're not getting it is because you just don't yet get it. And that it just takes time.
It does take time. And I think as you go, if you have this desire to grow and that humility to learn from others, right? This idea of, this particular situation, that individual handled it that way. I believe you can exponentially jump, right? Right. So I'm watching like that mistake. Well, okay, what did I got to learn from that and then make sure I don't do that. That practical wisdom.
Wisdom beyond your years.
Yes.
To say, I'm going to watch and I'm going to observe the mistakes that others are making. I'm going to pay attention to mine so that I can own them more. I'm going to do some outside reading. And more than anything, I'm going to grow in virtue. I'm going to become a better decision maker, which is prudence. I'm going to understand justice better, due portion. I'm going to know fortitude better. And by the way, magnanimity is a sub-virtue with fortitude. So to have that, and then to have the temperance on top of it too, to literally deliberately study the virtues, to not just go, I'm virtuous in this like vague way, but to understand what the virtues actually are, so that you can say, it's like this. It's like saying, well, I'm understanding the theory of a straight line or a circle. but you don't know what one looks like. Nobody's shown you one, so you don't know what one is. So in general, you're going to go with the concept of straight line. You wouldn't never know if you really had it.
Yeah.
So you actually have to like study a straight line. Oh, I see exactly what it looks like. This is how they function. Now I can see where I'm crooked. That's why I want people to not just like say, oh, I have prudence. How do you know?
Yeah, right.
Do you really know what prudence means? Could you break it down? And then that's how they can master those things.
Well, and I think when you use the word virtue, people are like, what? What does that mean? I think for me, when I think of this idea of virtue is human excellence, this idea, and then what are the characteristics that you need to do to build that and to grow yourself as a human person? And some people will think that's a religious concept, and it's not. It goes all the way back to the Greeks. You know, I'm talking about this idea of building greatness in yourself and becoming. That's one of the beauties when we talk about culture. Yeah. When you're striving this higher why, like when I look at our business right now, of course, you know, we say there's money in what you do, but more important, there is meaning. So there's something that we've created that not only helps our clients, but actually helps people become better people because we're striving and we consistently talk about how do you grow as a person. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about virtue, that's one of the beauties of it. And it's, by the way, it's very exhilarating because it's very deep. Like, and again, going back to the humility, like, gosh, I've got so much work to do, right? You know, and people look at you like, wow, I can't believe how amazing this individual is. And you're like, well, you don't know me. Yeah. You don't know all of the weaknesses that I have.
Hey there, Giant. Thanks for watching Durand On Demand. I need your help with something. The world desperately needs more giants. You know it, and I know it. We've been around a lot of people struggling, figuring out how to make things go. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this with as many people as you can. We're going to build this audience, and we're going to help people slay dragons together.